Welcome to Dalma Makes. This video's upcycled subject is this plain salsa jar. I washed and degreased this thoroughly and I peeled off the label best as I could. Then I scraped off whatever remained with a sharp blade. There are other methods like soaking it off, but I don't tend to have the patience for that, so I don't mind scraping. Once all the paper bits were gone, I wiped it down with some isopropyl alcohol to remove any remaining residue. For texture, this time I'm going to use one of the most common household items, a paper towel. These are often embossed with quite nice designs, but for me this time I wanted the slightly wrinkly texture that you get from wetting tissue paper. To glue it on the lid, I'm using some gel matte medium quite generously, saturating the tissue, and to make sure that it wraps around the edges without any resistance, I just cut some slits into it before I fold it down. Obviously, applying the matte medium makes it even more flexible and malleable, so I can manipulate it into place with my brush. And I made sure I laid down those edges neatly, fully saturated with the medium. At this point, I wasn't sure how much of the transparency of the jar I wanted to keep, so I fit measured and cut off some strips from the same kitchen towel, and I glued them onto the glass jar with the same gel matte medium. While patching the gap, I realized I actually really like the torn frayed edge and the overlap, so I just tore off a few more chunks and I added them as a second layer. This way I think it's going to be more and less translucent in a sort of random fashion. For the next layer of texture, I used this mesh material, and in a similar way, I just cut out some strips to wrap around the circumference of the jar. This material is stiff enough to hold its shape, but it is flexible, kind of like starched fabric. So I use the same technique to glue it down, saturating it once again. This technique also makes my materials less porous, so they will absorb less paint on that first coat. For the lid, these are the design elements that I wanted to add. The first one is a die cut of a clockface, a metal filigree flower, and lastly a flatback plastic pearl. I really liked the edge of this circle, but I didn't want it to look like a clock, so I carefully cut out the hands. And I got left with something that looks a little bit like a gear. I also used the gel matte medium to glue this down, as I already had it out and it works great on paper as well. After giving everything plenty of time to dry, it's time for painting. This is going to be fairly simple. I'm just base coating everything in a really nice blue. You can see me struggle there with the paint tube as it was behaving as if it ran out, but I knew there was still plenty of paint in there so I cut the tube open to get those last bits. And believe it or not, I actually still had some at the bottom of the tube remaining after I was done with this project. I did do a second coat as it wasn't opaque enough for my liking after the first. With the second coat, I sort of went out of bounds and covered a little bit more of the surface of the jar than I initially thought I would. The pearl that was going in the middle also got a base coat of the same blue to match. When that was all dry, I chose my second color, which is a much lighter sort of powdery blue. I think they work together beautifully, and I'm using my trusted method of fingertip application as I wanted to emphasize the texture, and sometimes the brushes are just too good at getting into the recesses. I just really enjoy the magic of all of the textures appearing when I use this method. For my third and final color, I chose gold, and I used the same method but with a lot more restraint. The gold is just an accent color. I'm using very little pressure to apply this. Of course, we can't forget about the pearl. The metal filigree I chose had a very antique, almost bronze looking finish, so I just used a little bit of my gold paint to make it match better with the project. To attach the filigree, I used some air dry resin. I placed dots in strategical positions where I could tell that it was making contact with the surface of the lid. I made a slightly larger hole for the pearl in the middle. This will cure rock solid and permanent. This is what the salsa jar looks like after the transformation. I think it's quite an upgrade. What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What color would you have chosen for this design? If you enjoyed watching this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I publish a new crafty video every week. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a nice day. Bye.